We lived here in Powell County, and then we moved back to Estill County. And then we went to Stanton. We owned a trailer park down there, so we moved down there. And then we was down there 9 years, and we moved back up here. So we've been up here 26 years the last of this month. They call it Furnace Road now, or Stanton Road. No, it's Furnace Road, I think they call it. But it used to be Stanton Mountain.
Noten Ridge.
Yeah, Noten Ridge out here. And then they changed it. They've changed our address about 3 times since we've lived here. Or 4. So it's Furnace Road, yeah.
Take a trip with me to 1913. To Calumet, Michigan in the copper country. I'll take you to a place called Italian Hall, where the miners are having their big Christmas ball.
Kentucky is horse country, and Powell County is right in the middle of the Dandy Boone National Forest. So we gravitated just by the expressway into Powell County. We liked the area and everything, and we bought property up here to bring our horses down.
Well, the county's cool. I like all the little back roads and stuff like that. I don't care a lot about some of the officials in the county, but it's mostly all right.
There's been a lot of new people come in here and built new homes and everything, and there's a lot more drugs. And the young people that didn't do drugs and drink back when I was growing up, they do it all now. So that's been the switch in Powell County for us.
See what your greed for money has done.
Like I said, I had talked to a lady that went out there and stayed out there, and she talked about renting from me. But I haven't seen her. I don't know what happened to her. But I haven't been out there and don't know nobody that goes out there.
Okay, I understand that it was a group from Lexington came out in this area, and they purchased property up on what is now Furnace Mountain. They brought timbers from warehouses out of California. I think it was San Francisco. Big, huge, solid logs were shipped out here, and the temple was built to specifications using this old timber.
Never heard much about it, just heard it was there. I think local people think there's all kinds of things that goes on out there that don't. I think they think there's stuff like voodoo and sacrifices and stuff like that.
I'd say the majority of local people don't have any clue what goes on out there. They just hear rumors, and most people I've talked to don't even know where it's at. They just know, oh, there's a Buddhist temple up there in the mountains somewhere, and that's as far as they know anything about it, I would say.
I'm sure they know about it. I think there were several articles in the local newspaper about it that described, what was going on there and who was involved and everything, to kind of get rid of these rumors and stories that were going around at the time.
But I decided I was going to go out there one day. I was out riding motorcycles around. I said, well, I'm going to stop by. The gate happened to be open, and I rode out through there.
I was born in Massachusetts, Ludlow, or I was actually born in Springfield, Massachusetts, which is outside about 100 miles from Boston, and grew up in Ludlow, Massachusetts. Grew up a Congregationalist, so there was a kind of sense of being. I always wished I could wear one of those crucifix, or actually, I guess it was St. Christopher was until he was kicked out. But I always wanted to wear one of those chains around my neck because all my friends had those. I went to graduate school at Kent State in Ohio, and I was there when in 1970 when the students were murdered. In fact, I was teaching a class that two of the students were going to that were murdered. And that was a big change, huge change. I was married, and a huge change in my life. And so I taught at EKU for 6 years, got tenure, and I guess I'll just talk about my life. And I was married, and my wife had what's called got pregnant. We adopted a baby, and then 5 years later, she had what's called an arterial venal malformation burst in her frontal lobes. And she lost the baby and survived, but changed drastically. And so we separated and divorced. So there's kind of two main crises, I would say, that precipitated a question, doubt, like the killings at Kent State, and then to lose a baby and lose a marriage and actually lose a wife was again a crisis of irreconcilability. The kind of where the mind comes up against what it expects is going to happen and it doesn't. And I went to Providence, where my teacher was, to what I thought was a Zen retreat, and it was called a Kido, K-I-D-O, and it was an energy retreat. And everybody had these pots and pans, and they were chanting, Quan Sem Bo So. And I thought, this is crap. And their cushions were red and green and yellow, and on the altar they had a fiberglass Buddha and Christmas lights, and I had come from a place with these amazing works of art, and every detail was completely taken care of, and this was just funky. I mean, really funky. And I thought, this is not for me. On the way home, having decided that I would never go back on the airplane with my wife, I was sitting there, and for the first time in my life, I was just sitting on the airplane, nothing else. And this tremendous sense of freedom appeared. And I knew that this was my teacher. So we wanted to find a retreat center that we could go to, that would be a strong practice center. But so you want to search for a spot that has balance, okay? Some temples in Korea are oriented toward the masculine, some are oriented toward the feminine. So, and some are balanced. This is a perfectly balanced spot. And when my teacher first came here, he thought that we should put the temple where the big pond is as we came in. And we walked up to the top. And he has diabetes, he had bad diabetes, so walking to the top was hard for him. And he got up there, and he looked out at this, and he couldn't believe it. He was literally shaking. And he said, if this was in Korea, people would flock here because of its auspicious characteristics. And people in the area don't understand why we're buying it. And they say, what are you going to do with it? And we say, nothing. And they say, well, are you going to farm it? And they think we have some hidden motive, like maybe there's gas or coal or oil or something, and we're really going to do nothing.
Oh, hard is the fortune of all mankind. They're always controlled and they're always confined.
I was living in Australia in the mid-90s, and that's when I first met Zen Master Dae Gak, who is the teacher here. He was in Brisbane, where I was living at the time, giving a public talk, and my husband and I, he picked up a flyer in a coffee shop one day. Not much happens in Brisbane, and he said, "We're going to see this. This will be interesting." I said, "Okay, yeah, that sounds kind of interesting. Zen Master." So we went along, and it really caught both of us.
I wanted to know, like, how's this chemical process of, or this, what happens in the brain with chemistry and electrical firings and stuff result in some notion of person, I, me, you, things. How does it result in the world of ideas and concepts when it comes down to physical chemistry? So I started studying neurology, and after a couple of semesters I realized I don't have a clue. I can't answer that question. And so then I looked into psychology, and the same thing. I went for a couple of semesters and thought, no, they don't know either.
And I've been practicing Zen ever since, basically, in Australia, then in England, where I was living for about 7 years before I came here. And I was the abbot of a Zen group in Bristol, in England. And we've been here 4 years, so about 6 years ago, Zen Master Dae Gak was in England leading a retreat with us, and he said, "Oh, I'd like you to come and help out at Furnace Mountain. I need people to help me run the place." And I said, "There's no way, I can't. Why would I move to Kentucky?"
And then my story gets quite bizarre, because I ended up, I moved back to Washington, D.C. area where my family lived, because my parents were getting older and I wanted to be close to them. And I got a job working for an order of Catholic sisters. And so I was working for these women, and I was incredibly impressed by them.
And that was at the start of this 4-day retreat. And the last day of the retreat, I said, "Okay, sure, I'll do it, why not?" And it took about 2 years for us to sort of extricate ourselves from our lives back in England. And yeah, then we came 4 years ago and have been here ever since.
Let me give my life energy join my life energy with what these women are doing. And so I became a sister. And I entered this order. And it was and it was wonderful, and I really loved them, and I loved their work, and they seemed to be rather fond of me, and that is how I ended up being sent to Louisville.
Living here, I've got to experience more of Kentucky and realize just how beautiful it is, the countryside out here. So I love that. I love the quiet that we have out here. I really love the down-to-earthness of the people, the friendliness of the people, that you go into the post office and everyone chats, and there's that sort of southern old-fashioned politeness too, where people open the door for you and say ma'am and sir and all that. And where I come from in England, it's not like that. People are rude and silly and kind of...
Eventually someone in Louisville told me about this place in eastern Kentucky, and she couldn't remember what it was called. She thought it was called Bathtub Mountain. And so I sort of started trying to figure out, well, where was this place? And finally, found out that it was Furnace Mountain. And so I went to Furnace Mountain's website, and I thought, oh my gosh, that place is so remote. What if the guy's a lunatic? I don't know if I want to be out there in this isolated, remote place. So I went, and in fact, I thought, here's a teacher who's really worthy to study with. It was getting to the point, as a Catholic sister, I had 2 years of novitiate, and then you have 5 years under temporary vows. And so I was coming to the end of my 5 years of temporary vows, and at that point I would have to make permanent life vows. And I was coming up and doing retreats with Dae Gak, and Dae Gak kept saying to me, "You can't take permanent vows, Mary. You can't do it. You're not really Catholic." I would say, "Yeah, I don't know. I know that, but it doesn't matter. What does it matter what one believes?" And I still feel that what we believe, the ideas that we have in our head, are somewhat irrelevant. It's how we function in the world and what we do.
I think there are people who disagree strongly with what we do. Most people don't know what we do. There have been rumors about what we do that are wrong. But we've been here 25 years. We are good neighbors.
What I like about this place is that it is really unusual to find something like this in Eastern Kentucky. You know, if you're in upstate New York or you're in California somewhere, there's Buddhist centers of every kind of kind, Zen centers and Dharma centers of different kinds. But if you're a person in Kentucky or Ohio or any of the neighboring states, really, there's nothing.
The other day, a local family came up. There were about 6 people, and a member of the family had died, and his request was that his ashes be thrown off of our rock, state rock. So the family came up very tentatively, you know, to ask, would we allow them to hike up to the top of the rock and throw his ashes off? Well, we have no problem with that. And they seemed surprised, and they said, you know, the local people said you'd run us off the land. Well, I don't know where that would come, you know, where that would come from.
Young people come, particularly, who come from areas in Kentucky where they stand out like a sore thumb. You know, they're from some small rural town, and for whatever reason they don't fit in with the church that they were raised in or with their family, but they have a very profound spiritual interest, but it doesn't fit within what's available, you know, to them. And so they fall upon this place as a, you know, like an oasis.
This is home to me. I hope to live and die here. You know, I mean, I think that this is Furnace Mountain is the place that I feel I would like to give my life's energy and support to the support of it, and to making this possible for people to come and make retreat here. And yeah, this is home base.
Many people who hear about this say, why would you make a Zen center in Powell County, Kentucky, in the foothills of the Appalachians? And that's a question I get wherever I go. And when anybody ever comes here and looks out, they don't ask that question anymore.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I hope that it'll survive, it'll continue. It's a challenge maintaining a Zen Buddhist center out in the middle of rural Kentucky. You know, it's not a hotbed of Buddhism, as we've kind of been talking about. So I think for it to find some sustainable way of continuing to exist out here, and yeah, maintaining a sense of being linked into the area. We have a lot of people come from long distances to practice here with us. We've got groups in like DC and in Texas, and people come from Europe and all over. But I guess personally, I would like to see us continue to extend our sense of links with local people and the community that we're in.
You know, my intention with regard to the land itself is to preserve it. I think that in the future, there will be very, very, very few old growth forests.
At the moment, we're a retreat center. We offer monthly retreats. We have a week-long retreat twice a year. We have a 1-month-long retreat once a year. You know, that's the current manifestation. Sometimes there's talk about being a training center as opposed to a retreat center, so that people could come and make a residential stay and actually have some kind of ongoing Zen training. Maybe that will develop. My hope is, I don't know that I care all that much about whether we take this form or that form. My hope is that it will continue to be a place where people can come and really look at, what does it mean to be alive? You know, what is this? What is this incredible miracle of who we are, and how do we live it? And as long as we do that, I don't care, you know, what form it takes.